The grip on Evelyn Hart's wrist tightened until her diamond bracelet bit into skin. She didn't scream. CEOs don't scream. But her driver did something unexpected. Jack Collins rose from his chair with the kind of stillness that makes predators freeze, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of 50 confirmed kills and a promise carved in blood. "You have 3 seconds to let her go. I won't ask twice." The businessman laughed. He shouldn't have. What happened next would make headlines, shatter reputations, and prove that the quiet ones aren't weak. They're just waiting. Before we dive into this story, I want you to stay until the very end, because what Jack does in the parking lot will leave you speechless. Drop a comment with your city name so I can see how far this story travels across the world. Marcus Trent's hand closed around Evelyn Hart's wrist like a vice. "We're not done talking," he said, whiskey breath hot against her face. The San Francisco Harbor Ballroom fell silent. 200 donors in $1,000 outfits froze mid-conversation, champagne glasses suspended in air. This wasn't supposed to happen at charity galas. Not here, not to her. Evelyn Hart, CEO of Next Tech Solutions, Forbes 40. Under 40, the woman who'd built a $400 million empire from a college dorm room felt her pulse spike. Not from fear, from fury. Marcus had been circling her all night like a shark scenting blood, his ego bruised from 3 rejected buyout offers, and a bruised masculinity that couldn't handle a woman telling him no. "Let go," Evelyn said, her voice steel wrapped in silk. Marcus smiled. "Make me, sweetheart." That's when the man in the corner stood up. Jack Collins had been watching from his position near the coat check for exactly 11 minutes and 43 seconds, long enough to catalog every exit, every security camera, every person who'd looked at Evelyn Hart with jealousy, lust, or malice. Marcus Trent checked all 3 boxes. He moved through the crowd like water finding cracks. No rush, no wasted motion, just the measured approach of someone who'd learned that speed without precision got people killed. "Take your hand off her." Jack's voice cut through the ballroom with surgical precision. "Now." Marcus turned, eyebrows raised in theatrical surprise. "I'm sorry, who the hell are you?" "The valet." "The driver?" Jack stopped 3 feet away, close enough to act, far enough to avoid escalation. "And you have 2 seconds to let Miss Hart go before this becomes a problem you can't buy your way out of." The ballroom held its breath. Marcus was old money, Princeton legacy, a man who'd inherited his father's real estate empire and his grandfather's conviction that the world existed to serve him. He'd spent 42 years learning that money solved everything, and violence was something poor people worried about. He was about to get educated. "Did you just threaten me?" Marcus's voice rose. "Do you know who I am? I know exactly who you are." Jack's eyes, pale blue calm as winter ice, locked onto Marcus. "Marcus Trent, trust fund baby, 3 DUIs expunged, 2 sexual harassment settlements sealed. You think you're untouchable because daddy's lawyers clean up your messes." Marcus's face went purple. "You have no idea who you're—" Your heart rate just spiked to 140. Your pupils are dilated. You're gripping Ms. Hart's wrist hard enough to leave bruises, which is assault. Jack's voice never changed pitch. "You have 1 second to let go before I make you let go. Choose wisely." "You threatening me?" Marcus squeezed harder. Evelyn gasped. "You think you can walk into my city, my event, and—" Jack moved. It happened so fast that 3 people later swore it was magic. One moment Marcus was gripping Evelyn's wrist. The next he was stumbling backward, his hand twisted at an angle that made doctors in the crowd wince. Jack hadn't struck him, hadn't needed to, just applied precise pressure to the median nerve cluster with the kind of control that spoke to years of training in places that didn't exist on maps. "Jesus Christ!" Marcus clutched his wrist, face twisted in shock and pain. "He attacked me. You all saw it." But the crowd had seen something different. They'd seen a man grab a woman. They'd seen minimal force applied with maximum control. They'd seen restraint most of them couldn't comprehend. That was a nerve hold, someone whispered. You saw police or military. Jack stepped between Marcus and Evelyn, his body a wall. Ms. Hart, we're leaving. Like hell you are. Marcus's friends were standing now, 5 men in tailored suits, each one wearing the same prep school entitlement. They spread out, blocking exits. You just assaulted me in front of 200 witnesses. You're going to jail, and your little boss is going to learn some respect. Jack's threat assessment jumped from yellow to red. He counted them automatically. 5 plus Marcus. Average height, 5'10". Combined combat experience, 0. Combined ego off the charts. The dangerous kind of ego that made men do stupid things because they'd never faced real consequences. Gentlemen, Jack's voice dropped lower, quieter, the kind of quiet that made smart people nervous. Step aside. Or what? The biggest one football build neck like a tree trunk cracked his knuckles. You gonna karate chop us? No. Jack shifted his weight slightly, hands loose at his sides. I'm going to ask you one more time to move. If you don't, I'm going to move you. And when you wake up, you're going to wonder why you confused money with toughness. The football player swung. It was a haymaker, wide, telegraphed, powered by steroids and entitlement. Jack didn't block it. He shifted 6 inches, let the fist sail past his ear, and used the man's momentum to redirect him face first into a cocktail table. Crystal shattered. The man dropped like a puppet with cut strings. The ballroom erupted in screams and gasps. Jack, stop. Evelyn grabbed his arm. We can just leave. They're not letting us leave. Jack's eyes were scanning, calculating. 2 men flanking left, 1 blocking the main exit. Marcus backing away, already pulling out his phone. Stay behind me. The 2 flankers charged simultaneously. Smart, or it would have been smart against a normal person. But Jack Collins wasn't normal. He'd spent 15 years with SEAL Team 3, running operations in Fallujah and Kandahar, and places so classified they didn't have names. He'd trained with Israeli Krav Maga instructors and Filipino knife fighters, and an old Russian who'd taught him that the best fights were the ones you ended before the other guy knew they'd started. First flanker came in high. Jack ducked under the punch, drove an elbow into the solar plexus with precisely enough force to collapse the diaphragm without breaking ribs. The man folded like origami, gasping for air that wouldn't come. Second flanker tried to grab Jack from behind. Mistake. Jack dropped his weight, broke the grip with a wrist twist that made the man scream and swept his legs. The flanker hit marble hard enough to echo. 3 down in 5 seconds. The ballroom was chaos now. People screaming, running, pulling out phones. Security guards from the venue were pushing through the crowd, unsure whether to intervene in what looked like a bloodbath. Stop him! Marcus was screaming into his phone. Get everyone here, now! The remaining 2 friends looked at their fallen companions, looked at Jack, looked at each other, made the smart choice and backed away, hands raised. Jack turned to Evelyn. We need to leave, right now. Jack, what the hell? No time. He guided her toward the exit, one hand lightly on her back, eyes scanning for threats. Marcus just called reinforcements. We've got maybe 3 minutes before this gets worse. They pushed through the glass doors into the San Francisco night. Harbor wind cut cold off the water. City lights reflected on dark waves. Evelyn's car was 3 blocks away in the public lot because her security detail had mysteriously canceled 4 hours before the event, and her regular parking spot had been accidentally double booked. Marcus's games. She understood that now. Ms. Hart. Marcus burst through the doors behind them, phone still pressed to his ear. You think you can humiliate me? Humiliate me. Evelyn stopped, turned. Marcus, you grabbed me. You assaulted me in front of 200 people. Whatever happens next is on you. What happens next? Marcus's smile was ugly. What happens next is your little bodyguard goes to prison for assault. What happens next is I destroy your company, your reputation, everything you've built. What happens next is you learn that in this city I make the rules. Sir, Jack's voice was tired then, the voice of a man who'd had this conversation too many times in too many languages. Walk away. Or what, you'll attack me too? Marcus held up his phone. I've got it all on video, every punch, every move. You're done. I defended Ms. Hart from assault. Every action was proportional. Every witness will testify to that. Jack started walking. Now we're leaving. You're not going anywhere. Headlights cut through the darkness. 3 black SUVs screeched into the parking lot doors, flying open. Men poured out, not Marcus's prep school friends, but professionals. Private security, thick necks, visible earpieces, the kind of men who got paid to hurt people legally. 10 of them. Jack counted automatically, assessed, calculated odds. Not good. Jack. Evelyn's voice was tight. What do we do? You run. Jack stepped forward, putting himself between her and the approaching security team. I'll buy you time. I'm not leaving you, Ms. Hart. Jack glanced back at her, and for just a moment his expression softened. My daughter Sophie needs her dad, but she also needs to know her dad stood up when it mattered. So please, run. The security team spread out in a professional formation. These weren't amateurs. They moved with the coordination of men who'd done this before. Their leader stepped forward, 6'4", 240 pounds of muscle and scar tissue. Mr. Trent says you assaulted him. You're going to come with us and wait for the police. Cooperate and nobody else gets hurt. Jack looked at the 10 men, looked at Evelyn, looked at the harbor stretching dark and endless behind them. Then he smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Tell me something, Jack said conversationally. How much is Marcus paying you? The leader frowned. That's not, because whatever it is, it's not enough. Jack's voice remained calm, friendly even. I'm going to give you gentlemen one chance to walk away. Clock's ticking. One of the security team laughed. You're outnumbered 10-1, buddy. Be smart. 10's not that bad. Jack rolled his shoulders, old injuries, protesting. He hadn't done this in 3 years. Not since Sophie's mom died, and he'd promised her grave he'd be better, be peaceful, be the dad their daughter deserved. But Sophie also deserved a dad who protected the innocent. Last chance, Jack said. Walk away. The leader shook his head. Take him. They rushed as a unit. What happened next would become legend in San Francisco security circles. The story that got told in bars and break rooms. The cautionary tale about underestimating quiet men. Jack moved like lightning wrapped in thunder. First man came in high. Jack ducked, drove a palm strike into the chin with precisely calibrated force. The man's head snapped back lights out before he hit the ground. Second and third came together. Jack sidestepped, grabbed the second man's arm, used his momentum to swing him into the third. They collided with a crack that made Evelyn flinch. Fourth man pulled out a baton, swung hard. Jack caught his wrist twisted, stripped the weapon, and used it to sweep the man's legs. He went down hard. 5 seconds. 4 men down. The remaining 6 hesitated. I told you to walk away, Jack said, breathing steady. But you're on payroll, and pride's expensive. I understand. They came at him all at once. Bad idea. Jack moved through them like a surgeon with a scalpel. Every strike calculated, every movement serving a purpose. Elbow to the solar plexus, knee to the thigh nerve cluster, wrist lock, shoulder throw. He wasn't trying to hurt them, just remove them from the equation as efficiently as possible. A baton whistled toward his head. Jack ducked, swept the legs, and the man went down. Another grabbed him from behind. Jack dropped his weight, broke the grip with a perfectly executed wrist release, and put the man on the ground with a controlled takedown. The leader came at him last, pulling a knife. The temperature dropped 10 degrees. Don't, Jack said quietly. The leader lunged. Jack sidestepped, trapped the knife arm, and applied a joint lock that made the man scream. The knife clattered to the pavement. Jack swept his legs and put him down with a controlled throw that looked gentle but left the leader gasping. 14 seconds, 10 men on the ground. Jack stood in the center of them, breathing steady, not even winded. His suit was rumpled, his tie was crooked, but his hands were steady and his eyes were clear. Evelyn stared at him like she'd never seen him before. "Who the hell are you?" she whispered. Before Jack could answer, sirens cut through the night, red and blue lights painting the darkness. Police cruisers screeching into the lot. Marcus was screaming, "Arrest him, he attacked us." But then Catherine Chen stepped out of the ballroom, phone in hand. "Officers, I'm Catherine Chen, Pacific Literacy Foundation. I witnessed everything. Mr. Trent assaulted Ms. Hart. Her driver defended her. These security personnel attacked first. I have everything on video." The police looked at the scene. 10 professional security guards on the ground. One driver standing calm, a hysterical billionaire, a respected nonprofit director with evidence. They made the smart call. "Everyone stays put," the sergeant said. "We're sorting this out at the station." Marcus's face went white. "You can't be serious. I'm Marcus Trent, my lawyers." "We'll meet you at the station," the sergeant said. "Let's go." As police separated everyone for statements, Jack turned to Evelyn. "I'm sorry. I tried to de-escalate." "De-escalate?" Evelyn's laugh was slightly hysterical. "Jack, you just took down 10 professional security guards in 15 seconds. Who are you?" Jack was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Someone who made a promise to be better, but also someone who can't watch innocent people get hurt." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer I've got tonight." Jack glanced at the police taking statements. "You should call your lawyer." "Jack, Ms. Hart." He met her eyes. "There are things about my past I can't talk about. Not because I don't trust you, because they're classified. But I promise you this, I will never let anyone hurt you, not while I'm breathing." Evelyn studied him. This man who'd been her quiet driver for 4 months, who read to his daughter every night, who made box mac and cheese taste like sadness, who just dismantled 10 trained fighters like they were children. "Next weekend," she said finally. "Countryside event. You're still coming with me." "That's really not Jack." Her voice was firm. "Marcus is going to come back harder. We both know it. I need someone I can trust. Someone who—" She gestured at the scene around them. "Someone who can do whatever that was." Jack wanted to refuse, wanted to go home to Sophie, wanted to forget this whole night and go back to being just a driver. But then he saw Marcus across the parking lot being loaded into a police car. The look in his eyes wasn't defeat, it was calculation, planning, revenge. "One condition," Jack said. "If things get dangerous, really dangerous, you do exactly what I say. No arguments. Deal." They shook hands as sirens wailed and camera phones captured everything, and Marcus Trent's eyes promised war. Neither of them saw the text message Marcus sent before police took his phone. "Get me 50 men, real ones, ex-military. I don't care what it costs. That driver is going to learn what happens when you embarrass me." 3 blocks away, in a dark sedan, a man in tactical gear read the message and smiled. 50 versus 1, he said to his partner. "Poor bastard doesn't know what's coming." His partner laughed. "Should we warn him? Why, Marcus is paying triple rate for this. By next weekend, that driver's going to wish he'd stayed in his lane." They drove off into the San Francisco night, leaving Jack Collins standing in a parking lot surrounded by men he'd defeated, completely unaware that the real war was just beginning, and that the number 50 wasn't Marcus's plan, it was Marcus's promise. The police station smelled like coffee sweat and bureaucracy. Jack sat in the interview room for 3 hours, answering the same questions in different variations. No, he didn't know Marcus Trent personally. Yes, he'd defended Ms. Hart from assault. No, he didn't use excessive force. Yes, he had training. No, he couldn't discuss where. The detective, a tired woman in her 50s named Rodriguez, studied him with eyes that had seen too many liars to be fooled by good ones. "You took down 10 professional security guards in under 20 seconds, she said, sliding a tablet across the table. "I've watched this video 40 times. You didn't hesitate, didn't fumble. Every movement was... She paused, searching for words. Surgical. Jack said nothing. Navy, Rodriguez asked. Marines, Army, Rangers. I can't discuss my service record. Can't or won't, both. Jack met her eyes. But I can tell you I've never been convicted of a crime, never been charged with assault. I defended Ms. Hart from battery, and I used appropriate force to protect her from armed attackers. That's legal in California. Rodriguez leaned back. Marcus Trent's lawyers are screaming for your arrest. But Catherine Chen's video shows Trent grabbing Ms. Hart first, shows his security team attacking you, shows you using controlled takedowns instead of... She gestured at the screen. Whatever you're clearly capable of. So, am I free to go? Technically, yes. But Collins... Rodriguez's voice dropped. Marcus Trent is vindictive, rich, connected. This doesn't end tonight. I know. Do you... She slid a folder across the table. I pulled some strings, made some calls. Your background is cleaner than a hospital floor. Too clean. No social media. No digital footprint before 5 years ago. Your daughter's birth certificate lists mother as deceased, but there's no death certificate on file. Your address is a rental paid in cash. You work under the table. She paused. You're either a very careful person or someone who knows how to disappear. Jack stood. Am I under arrest? No. Then I'm leaving. He moved toward the door. Collins. Rodriguez's voice stopped him. Whatever you were before, whatever you did, Marcus Trent is going to dig until he finds it. And when he does, he's going to use it to destroy you and everyone you care about. Jack turned back. For a moment, something flickered across his face. Something old and dangerous and tired. Detective, I appreciate the warning, but Marcus Trent has no idea what he's woken up. He walked out into the station's fluorescent glare. Evelyn was waiting in the lobby, still in her gala dress, makeup smudged from stress. She jumped up when she saw him. Jack, God, I've been so worried. Are you okay? Did they charge you? I'm fine, no charges. He glanced around the busy station. You should go home, get some rest. Rest? Evelyn's laugh was sharp. Jack, I just watched you fight 10 people like you were choreographing a dance. I'm not sleeping for a week. They walked out into the San Francisco dawn, pink light bleeding across the bay, the city waking up to a new day that would bring fresh headlines and social media storms and consequences neither of them could predict yet. Evelyn's Mercedes was still in the harbor lot, probably surrounded by news vans by now. Jack had taken an Uber to the station. They stood on the sidewalk, exhausted, wired, caught between adrenaline crash and the surreal reality of what had happened. I need to ask you something, Evelyn said, and I need the truth. Jack waited. Are you going to disappear because if Marcus comes after me and you vanish, I need to know now so I can prepare? I'm not going anywhere. Why? Her voice cracked slightly. You could leave tonight, change cities, start over. You don't owe me anything, Jack. Yes, I do. He met her eyes. You gave me a job when I needed one. You never asked questions. You treated me like a person instead of hired help. And you wrote my daughter a letter that made her believe the world has good people in it. He paused. So no, I'm not disappearing, not while Marcus is a threat. Evelyn felt something warm and complicated settle in her chest. Tell me one thing about who you were, just one. Jack was quiet for a long moment. Then, I was someone who rescued people, who went places others couldn't go and brought people home. It was my job, my purpose. His voice went softer. Until it wasn't anymore. What changed? I came home one day and my wife was gone. Brain aneurysm, no warning. Sophie was 6 years old asking me why Mommy wouldn't wake up. He stared at the horizon. I realized I'd spent 15 years saving strangers and couldn't save the person who mattered most. So I walked away, became someone else, someone who could be there for his daughter. Evelyn reached out, squeezed his hand. I'm sorry. Don't be. Sophie's the best thing that ever happened to me. He smiled slightly. She wants to be a writer, says she's going to write stories about brave people who help others. I told her those are the best stories. She sounds amazing. She is. Jack pulled out his phone, checked the time. It's almost 6. I need to get home before she wakes up. She has soccer at 9. Jack? Evelyn's voice was serious. Marcus sent that text. About hiring 50 men. I heard the police mention it. I know. And you're still going to the countryside event with me next weekend. I said I would. Why? Evelyn searched his face. Why risk everything for me? Jack thought about that. About Sophie asking him last week why some kids at school were mean to the new girl. About trying to explain that good people stand up even when it's hard. About wanting his daughter to see through his actions what kind of man he'd tried to become. Because someone needs to show Marcus Trent that money doesn't make you untouchable, Jack said. And because if I don't stand up when it matters, what do I tell Sophie when she asks why I didn't? Evelyn felt tears prick her eyes. You're a good man, Jack Collins. I'm a man trying to be good. There's a difference. He flagged down a passing cab. Go home. We'll talk Monday. Monday. She watched him climb into the cab, this quiet man who'd exploded into violence to protect her, and then return to stillness like it was nothing. Jack. He looked back. Thank you. He nodded once, and the cab pulled away into San Francisco morning traffic. Evelyn stood alone on the sidewalk watching the city wake up, wondering what the hell she'd gotten herself into and why she wasn't more scared. Maybe because for the first time in years of fighting her way through a male-dominated industry, someone had actually stood up for her instead of telling her to smile more or grow thicker skin or learn to take a joke. Her phone buzzed. A text from her head of security finally responding after mysteriously going silent yesterday. Ms. Hart just saw the news. I'm so sorry. All 6 of us got violently ill last night. Food poisoning, definitely suspicious timing. Do you need emergency detail? She typed back, I'm fine, but investigate the catering company. I want to know who paid them off. Another text came in, unknown number. You made a mistake last night. Jack Collins is going to wish he'd never touched me. Next time, there won't be cameras, there won't be witnesses, there will just be consequences. Enjoy your weekend. MT. Evelyn's hands shook as she screenshotted the message and forwarded it to her lawyer. Then she called an Uber and went home to her empty penthouse, where she stood in the shower for 40 minutes, trying to wash off the feeling of Marcus's hand on her wrist and the memory of Jack moving through attackers like water through stone. She didn't sleep. Across the city, Jack paid the cab driver and walked up 3 flights to his apartment. The building was old paint peeling, but clean and safe and close to Sophie's school. He unlocked the door quietly, expecting silence. Instead, he found his daughter sitting at the kitchen table, still in her pajamas, drawing. Sophie, why are you awake? She looked up with eyes that were too much like her mother's. I had a bad dream. You weren't here. Jack's heart clenched. I'm sorry, baby. I had to help someone. There was an emergency. Like when you used to help people before. He froze. What do you mean? Sophie went back to her drawing. Mrs. Chen told me at the library. She said you used to be a hero who saved people. She said that's why I write good stories about heroes, because I learned from you. Jack sat down across from her, bone-tired, emotionally wrung out. Mrs. Chen talks too much. Are you still a hero? I'm just your dad. Dads can be heroes. Sophie pushed her drawing across the table. It showed a stick figure man standing between a woman and some bad guys. I drew this. Is this what you did tonight? Jack looked at his 9-year-old daughter, this brilliant, observant girl, who saw too much and understood even more. He'd tried so hard to keep his past separate from her present, to be just a normal dad doing normal dad things. But Sophie had inherited her mother's sharp mind and her father's instinct for truth. Yeah, he admitted finally. That's what I did. Did you hurt them? I stopped them from hurting someone. There's a difference. Sophie studied him with those two old eyes. Are you going to have to do it again? Maybe. Be careful, Daddy. She got up, hugged him tight. I don't want you to go away like Mommy. Jack held her, breathing in shampoo and innocence and the terrifying fragility of being someone's entire world. I'm not going anywhere, Sophie. I promise. Promises are important. Yes, they are. She pulled back, looked at him seriously. Is the lady you helped nice? Very nice. Her name is Ms. Hart. She runs the company that donated money to your library. The one I wrote the thank you letter to. That's the one. Sophie smiled. Then I'm glad you helped her. Nice people deserve help. She yawned. Can I go back to bed now? Of course. Jack tucked her in, read her 3 pages of her current favorite book about a girl who discovers she's secretly a dragon, and watched her drift off to sleep with the absolute trust that only children have the belief that their parent will always keep them safe. Jack stood in her doorway for a long time, watching her breathe, and wondered how many more promises he'd have to break before this was over. His phone buzzed. Text from Evelyn. Marcus threatened me, forwarding to police, but wanted you to know. Are you sure about next weekend? Jack typed back, more sure than ever. Get some sleep. Another text came in, different number, blocked ID. Lieutenant Commander Collins, long time, heard you came out of retirement tonight. Impressive work. If you need backup for whatever's coming, call this number. Some of us still remember Ramadi. Ghost. Jack stared at the message. Ghost, real name Michael Torres, sniper, the best Jack had ever worked with. They'd pulled 3 hostages out of an ISIS compound together in 2019, nearly died doing it, and hadn't spoken since Jack's wife died, and he'd vanished from the community. He didn't delete the number. The week that followed was a masterclass in how money weaponizes institutions. Marcus Trent's lawyers filed a civil suit against Jack for assault battery and emotional distress, sought $10 million in damages. Evelyn's lawyers countersued for harassment and battery. The legal chess match began. News outlets picked up the story. Tech CEO's mysterious driver takes down 10 guards ran on every major network. Social media exploded with theories. Some called Jack a hero. Others called him a violent thug. Everyone wanted to know who he really was. Jack ignored all of it. He drove Sophie to school, made her lunch, helped with homework, attended her soccer game on Saturday where she scored 2 goals, and he cheered so loud the other parents stared. Normal dad things. But at night, he trained. In the apartment's tiny second bedroom, he ran through drills he hadn't practiced in 3 years. Shadow boxing, footwork, muscle memory flooding back like it had never left. His body remembered what his mind had tried to forget, that violence properly applied was a language he spoke fluently. Wednesday afternoon, Evelyn called. Can you come to my office? There's something you need to see. 20 minutes later, Jack stood in her corner office overlooking San Francisco Bay. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture, the kind of success that came from brilliance and brutality in equal measure. Evelyn looked exhausted. Beautiful still, but worn thin by stress and lawyers and the weight of running a company while fighting a war she hadn't asked for. Marcus withdrew his lawsuit, she said. That's good, right? That's terrifying. She pulled up security footage on her computer. This is from Monday night, my parking garage. The video showed a man in dark clothes planting something under her car. Professional, quick, gone in 30 seconds. Bomb squad cleared it yesterday, GPS tracker. Marcus wanted to know everywhere I went. Evelyn's voice shook slightly. My head of security did a full sweep, found 2 more, one on my assistant's car, one in the lobby potted plant. Jack's jaw tightened. He's escalating. It gets worse. She pulled up another file. Private investigator I hired dug into Marcus's recent activity. 3 days ago, he wired $2 million to a private military contractor, the kind that operates in gray areas internationally. He's serious about the 50 men. Jack, Evelyn met his eyes. I can cancel the countryside event. We don't have to do this. Yes, we do. Why, this isn't your fight. It became my fight when he touched you. Jack's voice was quiet but absolute. Men like Marcus don't stop because you give them what they want. They stop when they learn there are consequences. So we go to that event, we let him make his move, and we show him that money can't buy victory against someone who's already lost everything that mattered. Evelyn heard the pain underneath his words, the truth that a man with nothing left to lose was the most dangerous kind. What did you lose, Jack? The belief that being good was enough. He looked out at the bay, at the city that had become his refuge and was now his battleground. I spent 15 years thinking I was making the world safer, saving people. Then I came home and my wife was dead and my daughter was traumatized, and I realized all that training, all that violence couldn't protect the one person I'd promised to keep safe. He paused. So I walked away, became someone else, someone who could be present instead of deployed. And now I'm realizing you can't outrun who you are. Jack turned back to her. Marcus is going to bring violence to that countryside event. Professional violence. And I'm the only thing standing between that violence and you. Let me hire proper security, a whole team. He'll just bring more men, turn it into a war zone. Jack shook his head. This needs to be personal. Him versus me, clean. 50 versus 1 isn't clean. 50's actually not bad odds. At her disbelieving look, Jack almost smiled. You get good at math when your life depends on it. 50 men means communication issues, coordination problems, friendly fire risks. 1 man means total autonomy, flexibility, surprise. He paused. I've been outnumbered before, Ms. Hart. I'm still here. Evelyn stared at this man who spoke about overwhelming odds like discussing weather. You're insane. I'm realistic, and I'm trained. He pulled out his phone. I need you to do something for me. If things go bad this weekend, really bad, there's a letter in my apartment, top drawer of my nightstand. It's for Sophie. Make sure she gets it. Jack, promise me. The weight of his request settled over her, the implication that he might not come back, that this quiet man who read bedtime stories and made terrible mac and cheese might sacrifice everything to keep her safe. I promise, Evelyn whispered, but you better come back. Sophie needs her dad. I know. Jack moved toward the door. I'll pick you up Friday at 4. Pack light, wear comfortable shoes. Why comfortable shoes? Because if I'm right about Marcus's plan, we're going to be running. He left her standing in her office, staring at the bay, wondering how her life had gone from board meetings and product launches to GPS trackers and military contractors, and a driver who spoke about dying like it was just another item on his to-do list. Friday came too fast and too slow. Jack spent Thursday night teaching Sophie how to make pancakes, helping her finish a book report, and memorizing every detail of her face like he was taking mental photographs, just in case. You're going away this weekend? Sophie asked at bedtime. Just for work. I'll be back Sunday. Promise. Jack thought about the letter in his nightstand, about the GPS coordinates he'd scouted for the countryside estate, about the private military contractors Marcus had hired who specialized in wet work and deniable operations. I promise to try my hardest, he said carefully. And if something happens, Mrs. Chen has my spare key. She'll take care of you until family arrives. Sophie's eyes went wide. Are you in danger? I'm being careful. That's not an answer. She was too smart, too observant, her mother's daughter. Some people are going to try to hurt Ms. Hart this weekend, Jack said slowly. And I'm going to stop them. It might be dangerous, but I've trained for dangerous my whole life. Is Ms. Hart worth dying for? The question hit him like a fist. It's not about her specifically. It's about standing up when someone needs help, about being the kind of person who doesn't walk away when things get hard. Like heroes in my stories. Exactly like that. Sophie hugged him tight. Be a hero, Daddy. But come home too. I will. Jack held her, breathing in innocence and hope and the crushing responsibility of being someone's entire world. I love you more than anything, Sophie. More than anything. More than stars, more than oceans, more than all the words in all the books ever written. She smiled against his chest. That's a lot. It's exactly enough. He tucked her in, turned out the light, and stood in her doorway for a long time, memorizing this moment in case it was his last. Then he went to his room and made preparations. Friday at 4 p.m., Jack pulled up to Evelyn's building in a rented SUV, armored, not obviously, but the windows were ballistic glass and the doors reinforced. He'd paid cash at a specialty shop Ghost had recommended. Evelyn came down with a small overnight bag, wearing jeans and boots and a leather jacket that made her look less like a CEO and more like someone ready for anything. Nice truck, she said, climbing in. It's got upgrades. Jack pulled into traffic. Stay low if I tell you to. Don't argue. Don't hesitate. You really think Marcus is going to attack during the event? I think Marcus is going to use the event as cover. Isolated location. Rich people who won't all ask questions. He's going to make it look like an accident or a robbery gone wrong. Jack merged onto the highway, heading north. But he made two mistakes. What mistakes? He assumed I don't have backup. And he assumed I'm not willing to do what's necessary to protect you. Jack, Evelyn's voice was quiet. What are you willing to do? He didn't answer right away. Just drove in silence while San Francisco disappeared in the rearview mirror and the countryside opened up before them, rolling hills and vineyards and the kind of beauty that made people forget the world had teeth. Whatever it takes, Jack said finally, but I'm hoping Marcus is smart enough to walk away when he sees what happens to his first wave. First wave, you think he's sending them in waves. Standard tactical approach. Test defenses with expendable assets, then bring in the real operators. Jack glanced at her. I'm counting on it because the first wave is going to be a message. What message? Jack's expression went cold. The expression of someone who'd done dark things in dark places for good reasons and carried the weight quietly. That the quiet man they tried to intimidate is the most dangerous person Marcus Trent has ever met. The highway stretched ahead, carrying them toward violence and consequences, and a reckoning that had been building since the moment Marcus Trent grabbed Evelyn's wrist and woke up something Jack Collins had tried very hard to keep sleeping. The countryside estate appeared on the horizon just as the sun began its descent, a sprawling mansion where money and power gathered to pretend they were better than everyone else. Jack's hands tightened on the wheel. Somewhere on those grounds, 50 men were waiting, and one man was ready. The estate's circular driveway was already packed with luxury vehicles when they arrived. Bentleys, Mercedes, Teslas, the kind of cars that cost more than most people made in 5 years. Valets in crisp white shirts rushed between them like well-trained soldiers. Jack pulled past the main entrance, ignoring the confused valet's wave, and parked in the auxiliary lot 200 yards from the mansion. He backed into the space front facing the exit. Why are we parking so far away? Evelyn asked. Because when we need to leave, we're not waiting in a valet line. Jack killed the engine eyes, scanning the perimeter. Stay close to me inside. Don't accept drinks from anyone. Don't go anywhere alone. You're scaring me. Good. Fear keeps you alert. He turned to her. Marcus is here. I can feel it. How do you know? Because this is what I do. Lure the target to an isolated location. Control the environment. Strike when they feel safest. Jack's voice was matter-of-fact, clinical. He's watching us right now, probably from one of those upper windows. Evelyn looked up at the mansion. 3 stories of old California money, windows reflecting the dying sun like golden eyes. Somewhere behind that glass, Marcus Trent was planning violence. They walked toward the entrance, gravel crunching under their feet. Jack positioned himself slightly ahead and to her right creating a human shield without making it obvious. His eyes never stopped moving, cataloging faces, noting positions, calculating angles of attack. The mansion's interior was obscene wealth wearing a tuxedo. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, art that belonged in museums hanging casually on walls. 200 guests mingled with champagne and small talk, pretending their money made them important. Evelyn Hart, a woman in a silver dress, rushed over. "So glad you made it after that awful business last week. Are you all right?" "I'm fine, Michelle. Thank you." Evelyn smiled the smile she'd perfected in 1,000 business meetings. Warm but impenetrable. "And this must be your—" Michelle's eyes traveled over Jack's off-the-rack suit with poorly concealed judgment. "Security, my guest," Evelyn said firmly. "Jack Collins." Michelle's smile faltered. "The driver from the videos. How exciting." Jack said nothing, just nodded politely while his eyes tracked 3 men in dark suits stationed at strategic points around the ballroom. Not regular security, something else. Something military in the way they held themselves. They moved through the crowd, Evelyn greeting donors and board members, Jack maintaining his position like a shadow with a pulse. He accepted a glass of champagne he had no intention of drinking and scanned faces until he found the one he was looking for. Marcus Trent stood near the bar surrounded by his usual entourage. But tonight there was something different in his posture, a coiled tension, a snake watching mice play waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Their eyes met across the ballroom. Marcus smiled, raised his glass in mock salute. Jack didn't smile back, just held his gaze with the flat expression of someone who'd looked at death so many times, they'd memorized its face. "He's here," Jack murmured to Evelyn. "I see him. Stay in public spaces, near witnesses. He won't try anything while cameras are rolling." But Jack was wrong about the cameras. An hour into the event, the lights flickered. Once, twice, then the entire mansion went dark. Emergency lighting kicked in after 3 seconds, dim, red-tinged, turning the ballroom into something from a nightmare. Guests gasped and laughed nervously, assuming technical difficulties. Jack knew better. "Stay behind me," he said quietly, pulling Evelyn close. "What's happening? He's making his move." The crowd was murmuring, pulling out phones for flashlights. Staff were apologizing, promising the backup generator would engage momentarily. Everything looked like an innocent power outage. Except Jack had counted 6 security cameras in the ballroom, and all of them had gone dark before the lights failed. Someone bumped into Evelyn from behind. Hard, deliberate. "So sorry," a man's voice said. "This darkness." Jack spun, but the man was already melting into the crowd. Too practiced, too smooth. He'd planted something. Jack's hand went to Evelyn's jacket, found the small device stuck to her back. GPS tracker, active. He crushed it under his heel. "We're leaving," Jack said. "Now. But the event is a trap. Move." He guided her toward the exit, one hand on her elbow, other hand free. The crowd pressed around them, confused, chattering. Jack used their bodies as cover, while his mind raced through tactical scenarios. Marcus had cut the power to disable cameras, planted a tracker to follow Evelyn's movement, which meant the real attack was waiting outside, away from witnesses, probably in the parking lot where Jack had deliberately parked far from help. They'd walked straight into it. "Jack," Evelyn felt his tension. "What aren't you telling me? They're going to hit us in the parking lot. Multiple hostiles, professional operators." They pushed through the mansion's front door into California twilight. "When I say run, you run. Don't look back. Don't stop. Get to the SUV and lock the doors." "What about you?" "I'll be right behind you." It was a lie, and they both knew it. The parking lot stretched before them, half empty now, as sunset painted everything in shades of blood and gold. Their SUV sat 200 yards away, too far, too exposed. Jack counted shadows, positions. His threat assessment screamed red. They started walking. Gravel crunched too loud in the twilight silence. Evelyn's breathing was shallow, scared. Jack's was controlled, measured the breathing pattern he'd learned in buds when instructors had tried to drown him in cold Pacific water. They were 50 yards from the SUV when the first man stepped out from behind a Range Rover, then another and another. They materialized from behind cars and shadows and carefully prepared positions like ghosts, becoming solid. Dark clothes, no insignia, professional gear, each one carrying themselves with the unmistakable posture of military training. Jack counted quickly, 20 visible, which meant 30 more positioned out of sight, creating a kill box with no exits. 50 men. Marcus had kept his promise. "Well, well," a voice called out from the center of the group. A man stepped forward, 6'3", crew-cut scar across his jaw. Former military, the kind of contractor who did things governments couldn't admit to. "Jack Collins, heard a lot about you." Jack pushed Evelyn behind him. "Walk away, this doesn't concern you." "It concerns us for $2 million. The contractor smiled without humor. "Marcus Trent paid good money for a lesson in consequences, nothing personal." "Everything's personal." Jack's voice was calm, dead calm, the calm before violence. "Tell Marcus he made a mistake." "What mistake?" "Thinking 50 would be enough." The contractor laughed. "You got big balls, I'll give you that. But math is math. 50 trained operators versus one washed-up SEAL. Those are bad odds, brother." "For you, maybe." Jack's hands were loose at his sides. "Ready. Last chance, walk away." "Can't do that." The contractor signaled. The 50 men began tightening the circle. "Boss wants this done quiet. You cooperate, the girl doesn't get hurt. You fight, everyone bleeds. Choose smart." Jack's mind was racing through scenarios. 50 men, professional spacing, coordinated, no cover within 20 yards. Evelyn behind him, vulnerable, terrified, depending on him completely. The math was impossible, unless you changed the equation. "Evelyn," Jack said quietly, "when things start, you drop and stay down. Understand?" "Jack, do you understand?" "Yes." "Good." He took one step forward. "I'm going to ask you gentlemen one more time. Marcus Trent is not worth dying for. Walk away." "Touching." The contractor nodded to his team. "Take them." The circle contracted. Jack exploded into motion. He didn't wait for them to reach Evelyn, didn't fight defensively. He attacked. Drove straight at the nearest contractor with the kind of speed that came from years of muscle memory and zero hesitation. The first contractor didn't even get his hands up. Jack's palm strike crushed his nose, sent him stumbling back. The second tried to grab Jack's arm. Mistake. Jack trapped the arm, rotated, drove an elbow into the temple with precisely calibrated force. The man dropped. 2 down in 3 seconds. The circle erupted. Men rushed from all sides. Professional, coordinated, the kind of attack that should overwhelm anyone through sheer numbers. But Jack Collins wasn't anyone. He moved like water and lightning in equal measure, never standing still, always flowing between opponents, using their numbers against them. A contractor lunged from the right. Jack sidestepped, redirected him into another attacker. They collided, tangled. 3 more came simultaneously. Jack dropped low, swept legs, came up with an elbow that caught jaw, fist to solar plexus, knee to thigh nerve cluster. Controlled violence delivered with surgical precision. He wasn't trying to kill them. Killing was easy. He was trying to incapacitate quickly enough to prevent them from overwhelming him through volume. 6 down, 44 to go. A baton whistled toward his head. Jack caught the wrist twisted, stripped the weapon, and used it to sweep another contractor's legs. The man went down hard. Jack tossed the baton away. Weapons created legal complications he didn't need. The contractors were coordinating now, learning. 3 grabbed simultaneously from different angles. Smart. Jack dropped his weight, broke 2 grips with wrist releases, but the third held. Another contractor drove a fist toward Jack's ribs. Jack rotated, took the punch on his shoulder instead of his liver, and used the momentum to throw the man holding him into the puncher. They crashed into a car, alarm wailing, 10 down, 40 to go. But Jack was breathing hard now, sweat stinging his eyes, a cut above his eyebrow from someone's ring, his knuckles bleeding, age and time catching up with skills that hadn't been used in years. The contractors sensed it, pressed harder. 4 came at once. Jack managed 3 elbow sweep throw, but the 4th got through, fist to his jaw, stars exploded. Jack stumbled, caught himself, drove a counterpunch that folded the man. 15 down, 35 to go. Someone grabbed Evelyn. Jack heard her scream, spun, saw a contractor dragging her toward a van. Something primal and terrible ignited in Jack's chest. Not training, not skill, pure protective fury. He moved through the remaining contractors like a hurricane. No technique now, just speed and violence and desperation. Palm strike, elbow, knee, throw. He was taking hits, fists to his ribs, kicks to his legs, but he didn't care, only cared about reaching Evelyn. The contractor holding her saw Jack coming, raised a gun. Time slowed. Jack dove, rolled, came up inside the contractor's guard, disarmed him with a wristlock that made bones grind. The gun clattered away. Jack drove the man face first into the van's side panel. He dropped. "You okay?" Jack pulled Evelyn behind him, scanning for threats. "I'm okay." Her voice shook. "Jack, there's too many." "I know." 20 contractors still standing, circling now, cautious. They'd just watched one man take down 30 of their colleagues, watched their advantage evaporate through sheer skill and willpower and something that looked like magic but was really just years of training most people couldn't imagine. The lead contractor wiped blood from his mouth. "You're good, better than I expected, but you're bleeding, you're tired, and we still have numbers. Numbers don't win fights." Jack's breathing was controlled despite the exertion. "Will wins fights, and I will die before I let you touch her." "Doesn't have to go that way." The contractor raised his hand, signaling his men to hold position. "You walk away. We take the girl. She doesn't get hurt. Marcus just wants leverage. Business negotiation. Through kidnapping, through persuasion. She signs some papers, transfers some assets. Everyone goes home happy. Except the part where Marcus destroys her company and reputation." Jack shook his head. "Not happening. Then you die here. Your choice." Jack looked at Evelyn, at this woman who'd given him a job when he needed one, who'd written his daughter letters, who'd trusted him with her safety and was now terrified but still standing because she believed he could protect her. He thought about Sophie, about promises made and promises that might be broken, about the letter in his nightstand drawer explaining to his daughter why some things were worth dying for. Then he thought about something else. He pulled out his phone. "What are you doing?" the contractor asked. "Changing the odds." Jack hit a number. It rang once. "Collins." Ghost's voice crackled through. "You calling in that favor already? Where are you?" "Hilltop 500 yards north. Been watching through my scope since you arrived. Want me to start party?" Jack looked at the 20 contractors, at the parking lot that had become a battleground, at Evelyn pressed against his back, trusting him completely. "Light them up." The first contractor dropped before anyone heard the shot, just crumpled like his strings got cut. The second spun from impact, grabbing his shoulder. The third started running. Ghost's laugh came through the phone. "Counting 20 targets. This'll take about 90 seconds. You might want to duck." Chaos erupted. Contractors diving for cover, shouting, confusion. They were trained professionals being picked off by an invisible sniper, and nothing in their expensive contracts prepared them for this. Jack used the confusion, moved through them like a scalpel through flesh. No mercy now, just efficiency. Every contractor who'd accepted Marcus's money was a threat to Evelyn. Threats got neutralized. He moved fluid and fast, elbow to temple, knee to groin, sweep and throw. Contractors were scrambling, trying to organize, but Ghost was systematically removing anyone who tried to coordinate. Each shot precise, professional. The kind of shooting that came from years of combat deployment and zero hesitation. 5 minutes later, it was over. 50 men lay scattered across the parking lot. some unconscious, some clutching injuries, all of them comprehensively defeated by one man with a will of iron and a sniper with perfect aim. Jack stood in the center of it, breathing hard, bleeding from a dozen places, but standing. Evelyn was unharmed behind him. That was all that mattered. Clear, Ghost's voice came through the phone. "You okay down there? Define okay." "Alive, for now." Jack looked at the carnage, at his bleeding knuckles, at Evelyn staring at him like she'd never seen him before. "Thanks for the backup. You knew I was watching, counted on it. You never could resist a good overwatch position." Ghost laughed. "Get out of there. Police will arrive in 10. I'll ghost the scene, no pun intended." The line went dead. Jack turned to Evelyn. "Can you drive?" "What? Can you drive? Because I'm about to crash hard." She looked at him, this man who'd just fought 50 professional soldiers and somehow won, who was bleeding and battered but still standing, who'd kept his promise to protect her even when the math said it was impossible. "I can drive," she said. They stumbled to the SUV. Jack collapsed into the passenger seat, adrenaline finally wearing off, pain flooding in. His ribs screamed, his jaw throbbed, his hands were swollen and bloody. Evelyn started the engine, hands shaking. "Where do I go?" "Anywhere but here." Jack closed his eyes. "Drive until I figure out our next move." "Jack," her voice cracked, "what you just did had to be done. You could have died, but I didn't." He opened one eye, looked at her. "You okay?" "Me, Jack, you just fought 50 people. 49. Ghost got the last guy." He tried to smile, winced instead. "And I had motivation. Men fight harder when they're protecting someone." Evelyn pulled out of the parking lot past the groaning contractors into the California night. Behind them, sirens wailed. Police, ambulances, the machinery of consequences grinding into motion. "Marcus is going to come after us harder now," she said. "No." Jack shifted, trying to find a position that didn't hurt. Everything hurt. He's going to realize he made a critical mistake. What mistake? He threatened someone a retired SEAL cares about. Jack's voice went cold, hard, the voice of someone who'd done darker things than tonight in darker places. And now he's going to learn that some people don't forgive, don't forget, don't stop until the threat is permanently eliminated. "Jack, what are you saying?" "I'm saying this ends soon, one way or another." He looked out the window at passing headlights, at a world that kept spinning despite violence and pain and consequences. "But first I need to make sure Sophie's safe, and then I need to have a conversation with Marcus Trent." "What kind of conversation?" Jack was quiet for a long moment, the kind where only one person walks away. They drove in silence, leaving behind the estate and the 50 defeated men and the final shreds of Jack Collins's peaceful life. He'd tried to be just a driver, just a dad, just someone who read bedtime stories and made terrible mac and cheese. But Marcus Trent had pulled him back into the world he'd left, had forced him to remember who he'd been before grief and loss had made him someone else. And now that man was awake. The quiet man with the tired eyes and worn hands who'd once led rescue operations overseas, who'd saved hostages and eliminated threats and done things that kept people safe while robbing him of sleep. That man was back. And Marcus Trent was going to learn why the quiet ones are the most dangerous. Evelyn glanced at Jack, at his closed eyes and bloodied face and the tension in his jaw that spoke to pain he refused to acknowledge. She'd hired a driver 4 months ago. She'd found something else entirely, a protector, a warrior, a man who'd walk through hell to keep his promise. "Thank you," she whispered. Jack didn't open his eyes. "For what? For keeping me safe, for fighting when any sane person would have run. Sanity's overrated." His lips twitched. "Besides, I made a promise to Sophie that I'd be the kind of person who stands up. Can't break promises to 9-year-olds. They remember everything." Evelyn felt tears slide down her cheeks. "You're a good man, Jack Collins." "I'm a man who did what needed doing." He finally opened his eyes. There's a difference. The highway stretched ahead, carrying them away from violence and toward whatever came next. Behind them at the estate, police were sorting through 50 injured contractors and trying to understand how one man had done this. They'd never figure it out, because the truth was classified, hidden, buried under 15 years of operations that officially never happened. Jack's phone buzzed. Text from Ghost. Counted 49 confirmed non-lethals. Nice work. You got soft in retirement, but you're still the best I've seen. Marcus Trent just left the estate in a helicopter, heading back to the city. Want me to follow? Jack typed back, no, let him run. He'll make a mistake soon enough. Another text came in. Different number. Marcus Trent. You think you won tonight? You humiliated me again, destroyed my investment, made me look weak. This isn't over, Collins. I'm going to destroy everything you love, starting with your daughter. The SUV swerved slightly as rage flooded Jack's system. Pure, cold, murderous rage. He'd tried to handle this cleanly, tried to show Marcus that some battles weren't worth fighting, but threatening Sophie, that changed everything. Pull over, Jack said quietly. What? Pull over? Now. Evelyn pulled onto the shoulder. Jack got out, walked to the side of the road, and made a phone call. Collins, Detective Rodriguez answered. Where are you? I'm getting reports of a mass casualty incident at Marcus Trent just threatened my daughter. Jack's voice was ice. I'm sending you a screenshot. I want it on record. Jack, don't do anything stupid. I'm going to do something necessary. He hung up, sent the screenshot to Rodriguez and 3 other people, creating a paper trail, creating evidence that what came next was justified. Then he got back in the SUV. Take me to Marcus's penthouse, he said. Jack, no. He threatened Sophie. Jack's eyes were empty, dead. The eyes of someone who'd killed before and would kill again if necessary. That line doesn't get crossed, ever. Evelyn looked at him, at this man who'd been gentle and kind and patient for 4 months, who was now something else entirely, something that made her understand why enemies had feared him in places she'd never visit. What are you going to do? She whispered. I'm going to end this. Jack closed his eyes again, once and for all. The SUV pulled back onto the highway, heading toward San Francisco, toward confrontation, toward an ending written in violence and necessity, and the cold mathematics of protecting what mattered most. Marcus Trent had made his final mistake. He'd threatened the daughter, and now the father was coming. San Francisco at midnight looked like a circuit board viewed from space. 10 million lights pretending the darkness didn't exist. Evelyn drove through streets slick with fog, her hands white-knuckled on the wheel while Jack sat beside her, radiating the kind of cold fury that made the air feel 10 degrees colder. His phone rang, Sophie's number. Jack answered immediately, terror spiking through his chest. Sophie, Mr. Collins, Mrs. Chen's voice, calm but urgent. Sophie's fine, she's asleep, but there's a car parked across from your building, has been for the last hour. 2 men inside, they're watching your apartment. Jack's jaw clenched so hard, his teeth ached. Did they approach? No, but they're professionals. I recognized the type. Mrs. Chen's voice dropped. I was married to a Marine for 30 years. I know what operators look like. These men are waiting for something. For me to come home. Jack's mind raced through scenarios. Marcus had sent a second team, insurance, a threat held in reserve. Mrs. Chen, I need you to do something for me. Name it. Pack Sophie a bag. Clothes her favorite books, Mr. Whiskers, the stuffed cat Sophie had slept with since she was 3. Take her to your sister's place in Oakland, the address I gave you for emergencies. Don't tell anyone where you're going, not neighbors, not friends, no one. Jack, what's happening? Something that should have ended tonight, but didn't. He paused. If I don't call you by noon tomorrow, contact Detective Rodriguez at SFPD. She has a file. Everything's documented. You're scaring me. Good. Fear keeps Sophie safe. Jack's voice softened. Thank you, Catherine, for everything. You come back to that little girl, Jack Collins. She's already lost one parent. I know. He hung up, looked at Evelyn. Change of plans. We're not going to Marcus's penthouse. Why not? Because he's not there. He's at his office downtown, calling shots from his war room like the coward he is. Jack pulled up a map on his phone. Trent Tower, 40th floor, private elevator, security on every level. How do you know he's there? Because that's where I'd be. Surrounded by cameras and guards and legal protection, Marcus thinks money and walls keep him safe. Jack's smile was cold. He's wrong. Evelyn turned toward downtown, toward the glass and steel monolith that was Trent Tower, one of the tallest buildings in the city, a monument to inherited wealth and unchecked ego. 40 floors of lawyers and accountants and the machinery that turned money into power. Jack, Evelyn's voice was tight. What are you actually planning to do when we get there? Have a conversation. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have right now. He stared out the window at passing lights. Marcus crossed a line. He threatened Sophie. That's not something I can walk away from. So you're going to what? Kill him? The question hung in the air like smoke. Jack was quiet for a long time. I've killed people, Evelyn, in war zones, in operations that officially never happened. Men who were going to hurt innocent people if someone didn't stop them. I've carried those deaths for 15 years. Some nights I can still see their faces. That's not what I asked. I know. He turned to look at her from I don't want to kill Marcus Trent. I want him in prison. I want legal consequences. I want the system to work like it's supposed to work. He paused. But if he's done something to Sophie, if those men at my apartment have hurt her, then the system stops mattering. Mrs. Chen said she's fine. For now, but Marcus sent those men for a reason, and I'm going to make sure he understands that threatening children has consequences he can't lawyer away. They pulled into a parking structure 3 blocks from Trent Tower. Jack moved stiffly, getting out of the SUV, his ribs screaming protest, his hands swollen and bruised. He looked like he'd been through a war, which essentially he had. You need a hospital, Evelyn said. I need to end this. Jack checked his phone. No messages from Mrs. Chen. Sophie was safe. For now, that thought was the only thing keeping him functional. Stay in the car, lock the doors. If I'm not back in 30 minutes, drive away and don't look back. I'm not leaving you. Evelyn, no. Her voice was steel. You've protected me all night. You fought 50 people. You've bled for me. I'm not sitting in a car while you walk into whatever's waiting up there. It's going to get ugly. Then it gets ugly together. She met his eyes. Partners, remember. Jack wanted to argue, wanted to keep her safe from what was coming, but he also understood that Evelyn Hart hadn't built a $400 million company by sitting in cars waiting for men to solve her problems. Stay behind me, he said finally. Do what I say when I say it. And if shooting starts, you run. Understand? Shooting Jack. Marcus is desperate. Desperate men do stupid things. He started walking toward Trent Tower. I'm hoping he's smart enough to back down, but hope's not a strategy. The tower's lobby was glass and marble, and the kind of austere beauty that cost more than most people's houses. A night security guard sat behind a desk, reading something on his phone. He looked up as they approached, eyes widening at Jack's battered appearance. Sir, are you all right? Do you need medical? I need to see Marcus Trent, 40th floor. Jack's voice was calm, reasonable. Tell him Jack Collins is here. The guard's hand moved toward his radio. Mr. Trent doesn't see visitors without appointments, especially at midnight. Make an exception. Jack placed his hands on the desk. Call him. Tell him if he doesn't come down in 5 minutes, I'm coming up, and I'm not using the elevator. Sir, I can't. You can and you will. Jack leaned forward slightly. Because in about 3 minutes, SFPD is going to arrive with questions about the assault at the Countryside Estate, about 50 injured contractors, about terrorist threats against my daughter, And Marcus Trent is going to want to control that narrative before Detective Rodriguez does it for him. The guard looked at Evelyn. "Ms. Hart, is this—" "Call Marcus," she said quietly. "Trust me, he'll want to hear this." The guard hesitated, then picked up his phone. "Mr. Trent, sorry to disturb you, sir, but there's a Jack Collins in the lobby. He says—" "Yes, sir, he's here with Ms. Hart. They look—" He glanced at Jack's bloody face. "They look like they've been in an accident. Should I call police?" "You're sure?" "Yes, sir." He hung up. "Mr. Trent will see you. 40th floor, private elevator." He pointed to a separate bank of elevators. "Code is 4077. "Thank you." Jack started walking. "Sir," the guard called after them, "whatever's going on, be careful. Mr. Trent's been in a mood all night, angry, making calls. I've never seen him like this." Jack didn't respond, just punched the code into the elevator keypad and waited for the doors to open. They rode up in silence. 40 floors of anticipation and dread. Evelyn watched the numbers climb, her heart hammering. Jack stood perfectly still, breathing, controlled eyes, distant, preparing himself for what came next. "Jack," Evelyn touched his arm, "whatever happens up there, thank you for everything." "Don't thank me yet." The elevator chimed. "We might not walk out of here." The doors opened onto a private floor that was less office and more fortress. Thick carpet, dark wood, floor-to-ceiling windows showing San Francisco spread out like a jeweled blanket, and standing in the center of it all, backlit by city lights, Marcus Trent. He looked smaller than Jack remembered, older. Fear and rage had carved lines into his face that all his money couldn't smooth away. 2 bodyguards flanked him, professional alert hands near concealed weapons. "Jack Collins." Marcus's voice shook slightly. "You actually came. I thought you'd run. Disappear, like the coward you are." "I don't run from threats." Jack stepped out of the elevator, "especially threats against my daughter." "Your daughter?" Marcus laughed to sound like breaking glass. "I did some digging after tonight's disaster. Turns out you're not just a driver. You're Lieutenant Commander Jack Collins, Navy SEAL, retired. 15 years of classified operations, 2 Silver Stars, a reputation for extracting hostages from impossible situations." He smiled. "And now you're making pancakes and driving cars. How the mighty have fallen." "I didn't fall. I chose a different life, until I gave you an excuse to go back." Marcus poured himself a drink. His hands shook. 50 men, Jack. I hired 50 trained contractors. $2 million, and you put them all down like they were children. They were never going to be enough. Clearly. Marcus drained the glass. "So now what? You came here to kill me, to throw me off this balcony and claim self-defense." "I came here to tell you this ends now." Jack's voice was flat, final. "You leave Evelyn alone. You leave Sophie alone. You disappear from our lives completely, or I stop asking the system to protect you and handle this myself." One of the bodyguards shifted. Jack's eyes flicked to him. "Don't. Whatever Marcus is paying you, it's not worth what happens if you pull that weapon." The bodyguard froze. Marcus laughed again. "You're threatening me. In my building with witnesses, Jack, you're smarter than this." "I'm desperate. Desperate's different than smart." Jack took a step forward. "You made this personal. You threatened a 9-year-old girl who never did anything except exist. That's not business. That's psychopathy. And I don't negotiate with psychopaths." "Then what do? "I eliminate them." The temperature in the room dropped. Marcus's smile faltered. "You can't touch me. I'm recorded right now. Cameras everywhere. You hurt me, you go to prison. Sophie loses her father. You lose everything." "Maybe." Jack's expression didn't change. "But you'd be dead. And dead men can't hurt little girls." "Jack." Evelyn's voice cut through the tension. "Don't. He's not worth it." "She's right." Marcus straightened, some of his confidence returning. "I'm not worth throwing your life away. So here's what's going to happen. You and Ms. Hart walk away tonight. No charges, no lawsuits, clean break, but you both sign NDAs. You never speak about what happened, and you stay out of my way. And if we refuse, Evelyn asked, then I make both your lives hell. Legal hell, financial hell. I destroy your company, Ms. Hart. I file charges against Jack for every contractor he injured. I use every resource I have to make you wish you'd never crossed me. Marcus's eyes glittered. I'm offering mercy. Take it. Jack studied him. This man who'd started everything by grabbing Evelyn's wrist, who'd escalated to hiring contractors and threatening children, who stood here now, backed into a corner, still thinking money and threats would win. You don't get it, do you? Jack said quietly. This isn't about winning or losing. This is about consequences. You've spent your whole life buying your way out of consequences, but some things can't be bought. Like what? Like safety. Jack's voice dropped lower. You threatened Sophie. Put men outside my apartment. That means you're a threat, and threats get eliminated. It's not personal, Marcus. It's tactical. You're bluffing. You're not going to... Jack moved, not toward Marcus, toward the bodyguard on the right. The one whose hand had drifted toward his weapon, the one who'd been calculating angles. Jack crossed 10 feet in less than a second. The bodyguard's hand reached for his gun, too slow. Jack trapped the wrist, applied a joint lock, and stripped the weapon with the smooth efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. The gun clattered to the floor. The second bodyguard pulled his weapon, got it halfway out before Jack was there. Elbow to the solar plexus, wrist control, disarm. The second gun joined the first on the carpet. Both bodyguard guards on the ground gasping, disarmed. 3 seconds. Marcus stumbled backward, face white. You're insane. No. Jack picked up both guns, ejected the magazines, cleared the chambers. I'm thorough. He set the weapons on Marcus's desk. And I'm done being threatened. Security, Marcus screamed. Security! They're not coming. Jack's voice was matter-of-fact. I called Detective Rodriguez 20 minutes ago. Gave her everything. The texts, the contractors, the GPS trackers, the men outside my apartment. SFPD is probably in your lobby right now executing a warrant for your arrest. Marcus's face went from white to purple. You're lying. Am I? Jack pulled out his phone, showed him a text from Rodriguez. Warrant approved. En route to Trent Tower with 6 units. Do not engage suspect. We'll handle this legally. You son of a... Marcus lunged at Jack, all composure gone, just rage and fear and desperation. Jack sidestepped, let Marcus's momentum carry him past, and put him on the ground with a controlled throw that looked gentle but wasn't. Marcus hit carpet hard, wind knocked out of him. Stay down, Jack said quietly. But Marcus was beyond reason now. He scrambled up, grabbed a letter opener from his desk, swung wildly. The blade caught Jack's forearm, opening a line of red. Jack didn't flinch, just trapped Marcus's wrist, applied pressure to the radial nerve, and watched the letter opener fall. Then he drove Marcus back against the window, one forearm across his throat. Not enough pressure to choke, just enough to hold. I could end you right now. Jack said, his voice so quiet Evelyn barely heard it. One move, you'd fall 40 floors. Look like suicide. Desperate billionaire who'd lost everything. No one would question it. Marcus's eyes were wide, terrified. Please? But I won't. Jack released him, stepped back. Because my daughter deserves a father who's better than you. Who knows when to stop. Who understands that revenge isn't justice. Marcus collapsed against the window, gasping. You're letting me go. No, I'm letting the system have you. Jack heard sirens outside, saw red and blue lights painting the streets below. Detective Rodriguez has enough evidence to put you away for years. Assault, conspiracy, terrorist threats. You're done, Marcus. Not because I killed you, because I documented everything and trusted the law. Footsteps thundered in the hallway. The elevator dinged, voices shouting. SFPD hands where we can see them. Detective Rodriguez burst in with 6 officers, weapons drawn. She took in the scene, 2 bodyguards on the ground, Marcus against the window, Jack standing calm and bleeding, Evelyn pressed against the far wall. "Jack," Rodriguez's voice was tight, "step away from Mr. Trent." "Already done." Jack raised his hands. "He's all yours, detective." 2 officers moved to Marcus, pulling him to his feet, reading him his rights. "Marcus Trent, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit assault, making terrorist threats, witness intimidation." The words faded into background noise as the weight out of everything finally hit Jack. The adrenaline crash he'd been holding off. He stumbled, caught himself against the desk. "Jack," Evelyn rushed to him. "Someone call an ambulance." "I'm fine," Jack mumbled. But he wasn't fine. His ribs were probably cracked. His hands were destroyed. The cut on his arm was bleeding steadily, and exhaustion was pulling him down like quicksand. Rodriguez was there supporting his other side. "You're going to the hospital. No arguments. Sophie is safe. We picked up the 2 men outside your apartment. They were hired by Trent. They're in custody." Rodriguez's voice softened. "Mrs. Chen and your daughter are in protective custody. We'll keep them there until this is officially over." "It's over." Jack's vision was getting blurry. "Marcus is done. He's done. You got him, Jack. Legally, the right way." She glanced at Evelyn. "Both of you did." Paramedics arrived, started checking Jack's injuries. He let them work, too tired to resist. Somewhere in the chaos, he felt Evelyn's hand in his, heard her voice telling him to stay awake, saw Rodriguez barking orders and Marcus being led away in handcuffs, still screaming about lawyers and appeals and how this wasn't over. But it was over. The quiet man who'd tried to live peacefully had been forced to fight, had fought with everything he had, and had won not through violence but through documentation, through trusting the system just long enough for it to work. Jack closed his eyes in the ambulance, Evelyn's hand still in his, and let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, he could go back to being just a dad. Just someone who read bedtime stories and made terrible mac and cheese and tried to show his daughter that standing up for what's right mattered more than winning. The ambulance wailed through San Francisco streets, carrying him toward hospitals and questions and the aftermath of violence, but also toward Sophie, toward home, toward the life he'd chosen when he'd walked away from war. "Stay with me," Evelyn's voice cut through the fog. "Jack, stay awake." "Tired," he mumbled. "I know, but you don't get to check out yet. Sophie needs you." Sophie. The name cut through exhaustion like a blade. Jack forced his eyes open, focused on Evelyn's face. "Tell her I'm okay when she wakes up. Tell her I kept my promise." "You'll tell her yourself." Evelyn's eyes were wet. "You're going to be mine." The paramedic said nothing's critical. "You just need rest and stitches and probably a month of physical therapy." Jack almost smiled. "Only a month. Maybe 2. She squeezed his hand. "Thank you, Jack, for everything, for protecting me, for fighting when I couldn't, for being the kind of person who actually lives up to promises." "Just did what needed doing." "No, you did more than that." Evelyn's voice cracked. "You showed me what integrity looks like, what real strength is. Not money, not power, just a man who stands up when it matters." The ambulance pulled up to San Francisco General. Doors flew open. Medical personnel swarmed. Jack was transferred to a gurney wheeled through automatic doors into fluorescent brightness and antiseptic smell. Evelyn followed, still holding his hand, refusing to let go, even when nurses tried to guide her to the waiting room. "I'm staying with him," she said firmly. "He's my—" She paused, searching for words. "He's my friend, and friends don't leave friends alone." The nurses relented, let her stay through triage and x-rays, and the tedious process of cleaning wounds and stitching cuts. Jack drifted in and out, pain medication making everything soft and distant. At some point, Detective Rodriguez appeared, asked questions. Jack answered as best he could, his voice slurred but truthful. Yes, Marcus had threatened his daughter. Yes, he'd acted in self-defense. No, he didn't regret anything except not ending it sooner. We got his whole operation, Rodriguez said. The contractors are cooperating, giving statements. Marcus tried to wipe his servers, but our tech team recovered everything. Emails, financial transfers, plans for future attacks. He's looking at 20 years minimum. Good. Jack's eyes were closing again. He can't hurt anyone from prison. Jack. Rodriguez's voice was softer. What you did tonight, fighting those contractors, confronting Marcus, that was insane, stupid, reckless. She paused. It was also the bravest thing I've seen in 20 years of police work. You could have run, should have run, but you stood up, protected Ms. Hart, trusted the system when most people would have taken the law into their own hands. Almost did, Jack admitted. Wanted to throw him off that balcony. But you didn't. That's what separates you from him. Rodriguez patted his shoulder. Get some rest, Collins. Your daughter's going to want her dad back in one piece. She left. The hospital quieted, night deepening toward dawn. Evelyn sat in a chair beside Jack's bed, refusing to leave, exhaustion written into every line of her face. Go home, Jack mumbled. You need sleep. So do you. I have drugs. You have guilt. Evelyn smiled slightly. How can you still make jokes? Practice. Sophie says I'm not funny, but I keep trying. Jack turned his head to look at her. This wasn't your fault, you know. None of it. I hired you, brought you into my world, put Sophie at risk. No, Marcus did that. Marcus chose violence, chose threats, chose to be the kind of man who hurts people weaker than him. Jack's voice was firm despite the pain medication. You're not responsible for his evil. Then why do I feel like I am? Because you're a good person. Good people feel guilty when bad things happen near them, but guilt without cause is just pride wearing a disguise. Jack closed his eyes. Let it go, Evelyn. This is over. Marcus is in custody. Sophie's safe. We won. Did we? Evelyn looked at his bandaged hands, his stitched face, the monitors tracking his vitals. You're in a hospital bed. Your body is broken. Marcus destroyed your peaceful life. Marcus gave me a chance to prove I'm still the man I want Sophie to see. Jack's voice was getting quieter, sleep pulling him under. That's not nothing. That's everything. Evelyn watched him drift off, this man who'd been her driver for 4 months and her protector for one terrible night, who'd fought 50 people and somehow won, who'd chosen law over revenge when revenge would have been easier. Her phone buzzed, a text from her assistant. News is everywhere. Tech CEO saved by mysterious driver again. Marcus Trent arrested. Your company's stock up 8% on sympathy surge. Board wants emergency meeting Monday. Are you okay? Evelyn typed back. I'm fine. Cancel Monday's meeting. I'm taking the week off. For the first time in 10 years, Evelyn Hart put her phone on silent, leaned back in the uncomfortable hospital chair, and let herself just exist. No emails, no board meetings, no performance metrics or quarterly projections. Just a woman sitting beside a friend who'd bled for her, waiting for dawn to break over a city that kept spinning despite violence and chaos and the terrible beauty of people who stood up when standing up mattered most. Outside San Francisco was waking up. News spreading, headlines forming. The story of Marcus Trent's arrest and the driver who'd taken down 50 contractors becoming legend faster than truth could catch up. But inside room 437 of San Francisco General, there was only peace. The quiet breathing of a man who'd fought his war and survived. The steady beep of monitors promising life would continue. The soft sound of a woman finally letting herself believe that maybe, just maybe, the world still had heroes. They just looked different than expected. Wore worn suits and drove Toyotas and read bedtime stories with voices that still carried echoes of commands given in darker places. Jack Collins slept dreaming of Sophie's laugh and pancakes burned at the edges. and a future where violence was just a memory instead of a promise. And for the first time in 3 years, he slept without nightmares. Morning came through hospital windows like a promise kept. Jack woke to sunlight and pain and the sound of someone arguing with a nurse in the hallway. "I don't care about visiting hours. That's my daddy in there. Sophie." Jack tried to sit up, grimaced as his ribs screamed protest. The door burst open and 9 years of determination came flying at his hospital bed. "Daddy!" Sophie launched herself at him, then stopped short, seeing the bandages and monitors and the evidence of violence written across his body. Her eyes went wide. "You're hurt?" "I'm okay, baby." Jack opened his arms. Sophie climbed carefully onto the bed, mindful of wires and IV lines, and pressed her face against his chest. Jack held her with his good arm, breathing in shampoo and relief, and the overwhelming love that made everything else worth it. "Mrs. Chen said you were protecting someone," Sophie said, her voice muffled against his hospital gown. "She said you were brave." "I was just doing what needed to be done." "That's what brave means, Daddy." Sophie pulled back to look at him. "Are the bad people gone?" "They're gone. You're safe. I promise. You keep promising things." Sophie's eyes were too old, too knowing. What if one day you can't keep a promise? Jack thought about that, about the 50 contractors and the parking lot and how close he'd come to not walking away, about Marcus's letter opener and the moment he'd considered throwing a man off a 40-story building, about all the ways this could have ended with Sophie losing her father. "Then I'll have tried my hardest," he said carefully. "Sometimes that's all we can do, try our hardest and hope it's enough." Was it enough this time? Yeah, sweetheart, it was enough. Mrs. Chen appeared in the doorway, looking tired but relieved. "I'm sorry, Mr. Collins. She insisted on seeing you the moment Detective Rodriguez said it was safe." "It's fine. Thank you for keeping her safe. That's what neighbors do." Mrs. Chen smiled. "The police arrested those men outside your apartment, and the news says Marcus Trent is going to prison for a very long time." Sophie perked up. "The mean man who hurt people, that's the one." "Good." Sophie settled against Jack's side. "He shouldn't hurt people. Hurting people is wrong." "Yes, it is," Jack agreed, "which is why we only fight to protect others, never to attack them." "Is that why you fought to protect the lady?" "Ms. Hart." "Yes." "Can I meet her?" Sophie asked. "I want to thank her for the letter she wrote me about my essay, and for making you smile more." Jack blinked. "I smile plenty. Not like you do when you talk about her." Sophie's observation was matter of fact. "You smile different, like when you used to talk about Mommy." The room went very quiet. Mrs. Chen cleared her throat. "I'll give you two some time. Sophie, we need to let your father rest." 5 more minutes. Sophie's voice was small. "Please, 5 minutes." Jack agreed. He looked at Mrs. Chen. "Thank you for everything." She nodded and left, closing the door softly behind her. Jack held his daughter in the morning light, feeling every bruise and cut and broken part of himself, but also feeling whole in a way he hadn't since his wife died, because Sophie was safe, the threat was gone, and somehow, impossibly, they'd survived. "Daddy," Sophie's voice was quiet. "Are you going to stop being a driver now?" "Why would you think that?" "Because you're on the news. Everyone knows you're a hero. Heroes don't drive cars." Jack almost laughed. "Heroes do whatever needs doing, Sophie. Sometimes that's rescuing hostages. Sometimes it's making pancakes. Sometimes it's just showing up when someone needs you. Will you still show up for me every single day?" He kissed the top of her head. "Nothing's changing. I'm still your dad. Still going to make terrible mac and cheese and read you too many bedtime stories and cheer too loud at your soccer games. Promise. Promise." They sat in comfortable silence, Jack memorizing this moment. His daughter safe in his arms, sunlight painting everything gold. The steady beep of monitors promising that life would continue, that they'd survive the storm together. A soft knock on the door. Evelyn entered carrying coffee and looking like she'd slept in her clothes, which she had. She stopped when she saw Sophie, something soft crossing her face. "Hi," Evelyn said. "You must be Sophie. I'm Ms. Hart." Sophie lit up. "You wrote me the letter about my essay." "I did." Evelyn came closer, set the coffee down. "You wrote beautifully about why reading matters." "It made me cry." "Happy crying or sad crying?" "Both. The best kind of crying." Evelyn smiled. "Your dad talks about you constantly, you know. He's very proud." Sophie beamed. "He's proud of you, too. He says you built your company from nothing, that you're smart and strong and don't let mean people push you around." "Well," Evelyn glanced at Jack, "your dad's the one who made sure mean people couldn't push me around anymore." "Because that's what dads do," Sophie said confidently. "They protect people." The simple truth of it hung in the air. Jack felt Evelyn's eyes on him, saw something complicated and grateful and emotional in her expression. "Sophie." Mrs. Chen appeared in the doorway again. "Hospital cafeteria has pancakes. Want to go investigate if they're better than your dad's?" "Nothing's better than Daddy's pancakes." But Sophie climbed carefully off the bed. "But I'll check, for science." She hugged Jack one more time, whispered, "I love you more than stars," against his ear, and left with Mrs. Chen. The room felt bigger and quieter without her. Evelyn sat in the chair she'd occupied all night. "She's amazing. She's my whole world." Jack shifted, trying to find a position that didn't hurt. Everything hurt. "How are you holding up?" "Me, Jack. You're the one in the hospital bed." "That's not an answer." Evelyn looked down at her hands. "I keep replaying it. The parking lot. 50 men. You fighting like something out of a movie. Except it was real. You were really bleeding, really risking everything." Her voice cracked. "For me. Not just for you, for the principal, for Sophie. For everyone Marcus would have hurt if someone didn't stop him." Still, Evelyn met his eyes. "You could have died, Jack. And Sophie would have lost her father because I brought you into my mess." "Stop." Jack's voice was firm. "Marcus created the mess. Marcus chose violence. You're a victim here, Evelyn, not the villain." "Then why do I feel guilty?" "Because you're human. Humans feel things even when logic says they shouldn't." He paused. "My wife died of a brain aneurysm, completely random. Nothing anyone could have prevented, but I spent 2 years feeling guilty anyway. Guilty for not noticing signs that didn't exist, for being overseas when it happened, for surviving when she didn't." His voice went softer. "Guilt's just love with nowhere to go. Eventually you have to let it settle, turn it into something else." "Like what?" "Like action. Like building something good from something terrible." Jack gestured at the hospital room, at the morning at the city beyond the window. "Marcus tried to destroy us. Instead, we survived. We won. We proved that money doesn't make you untouchable. That's worth something." Evelyn was quiet for a long moment. "I'm starting a foundation, the Collins Initiative, hiring veterans and single parents, giving them second chances." She looked up. "I want you to run it." Jack stared at her. "What?" "You heard me. I want you to run it. Full-time position, competitive salary, benefits, the works." Evelyn's voice was steady. "You understand what these people need because you are these people, and you have the integrity to make sure the money actually helps instead of just making me look good." "Evelyn, I'm not qualified to." "You led rescue operations in war zones. You managed teams under impossible conditions. You stayed calm when 50 men were trying to kill us." She leaned forward. "You're more qualified than anyone I know, and Sophie deserves a father who isn't working part-time cash jobs." "I like driving." "Then drive. But drive with health insurance and a retirement plan and the knowledge that your daughter's education is covered." Evelyn's eyes were wet. "Let me do this, Jack. Let me give something back to the man who gave everything for me." Jack wanted to refuse, wanted to maintain the independence he'd built so carefully. But he thought about Sophie, about the life she deserved, about college funds and birthday parties and all the normal things other kids took for granted. "I'll think about it," he said finally. "That's all I ask." Evelyn pulled out her phone. "The board wants to meet with you. The mayor wants to give you a commendation. CNN wants an interview. You're kind of famous now. I don't want to be famous. Too late. Driver takes down 50 contractors is trending on every platform. She showed him her phone. The headlines were everywhere, photos of Jack before and after, speculation about his military background, think pieces about masculinity and heroism, and what it means to stand up to bullies. Jack groaned. This is going to be a nightmare. Or an opportunity. Evelyn set her phone down. You could help people, Jack, not by fighting, by showing them that strength isn't about violence. It's about knowing when to fight and when to walk away, about protecting the vulnerable, about being the kind of man Sophie's already proud to call her father. You're very persuasive. I'm a CEO. Persuasion is in the job description. She smiled. Think about it, no pressure, but know that whatever you decide, you have options. You're not alone anymore. The words hit harder than Jack expected. Not alone. He'd been alone since his wife died, him and Sophie against the world, building walls to keep grief manageable and the future predictable. But maybe walls weren't always necessary. Maybe letting people in was its own kind of strength. Thank you, Jack said quietly, for last night, for staying, for... He gestured vaguely. Everything. Thank me by getting better. Evelyn stood. I'm going home to shower and sleep for 12 hours. Then I have lawyers to meet and a company to run and approximately 600 emails to answer. But I'll come back tomorrow. Bring Sophie some books. Maybe decent coffee. She'd like that. Evelyn started to leave, paused at the door. Jack, what you said in Trent Tower about eliminating threats, did you mean it? Jack held her gaze. In that moment, yes. I was willing to kill Marcus to keep Sophie safe. He paused. But I'm glad I didn't. Glad the system worked, because killing him would have made me like him, and Sophie deserves better than that. We all deserve better than that. Evelyn's smile was sad and grateful and complicated. Rest, Jack. The world can wait a few days. She left. Jack lay back against pillows, exhausted and hurting, and somehow more at peace than he'd been in years. The immediate threat was gone. Sophie was safe. And for the first time since his wife's death, Jack could imagine a future that wasn't just survival, but actually living. The next 3 days were a blur of doctors and painkillers and visitors Jack didn't want. Detective Rodriguez came by with paperwork and updates. Marcus Trent had been denied bail. The contractors had all testified against him in exchange for reduced charges. The evidence was overwhelming. Marcus was looking at 25 years minimum. Justice moves slow, Rodriguez said, but it moves. You did good, Collins. You proved the system still works when people are brave enough to trust it. Ghost showed up on day 2, appearing silently in Jack's room like he'd materialized from shadows. They didn't talk about the parking lot or the sniper shots or the old missions they'd shared. Just sat in comfortable silence, 2 warriors who'd survived their wars, comparing scars. You got soft in retirement, Ghost said eventually, but you're still the best I've seen. Soft's not weak. No, it's not. Ghost stood to leave. You need backup again, you call. Some of us still believe in protecting the innocent, even if we're not getting paid for it. I'm hoping I don't need backup anymore. Keep hoping, but keep my number. Ghost paused at the door. Your kid's lucky, having a dad who actually shows up, does the hard things. Most of us didn't have that. I'm just trying not to screw her up. You're doing better than that. You're showing her what integrity looks like. Ghost disappeared into the hallway as silently as he'd arrived. On day 3, they discharged Jack with prescriptions he couldn't pronounce and instructions to rest for 6 weeks. Mrs. Chen drove him and Sophie home. The apartment looked smaller than Jack remembered, more fragile, like everything had changed while the walls stayed the same. Sophie helped him settle on the couch, brought him water and pills and the current book she was reading, something about a girl who discovered she was secretly a dragon. Will you read to me? Sophie asked. Even though you're supposed to be resting, reading to you is rest, Jack said, and meant it. They read for an hour. Sophie curled against his side, careful of his injuries, her small hand resting on his arm, like she needed the physical confirmation that he was real. Was here, was staying. His phone buzzed constantly. Messages from people Jack barely knew, news requests, job offers. The world had decided he was a hero and wouldn't leave him alone about it. He turned the phone off. This Sophie and books and the quiet sanctuary of home, this mattered more than headlines or commendations or any recognition the world wanted to give him. Daddy, Sophie looked up. Are you happy? Right now? Yeah, I'm happy. Even though you're hurt, especially because I'm hurt. At her confused look, Jack tried to explain. The hurt means I fought for something important, means I didn't walk away when someone needed help. That's worth hurting for. Will you fight again? I hope I don't have to, but if I do, Jack kissed the top of her head. I'll fight smart, fight safe, and always, always come home to you. Promise, promise. They read until Sophie fell asleep against him. Jack sat in the afternoon light, holding his daughter, feeling every injury pulse in time with his heartbeat. The pain was temporary, the scars would fade, but this moment of peace and safety and love, this was permanent. His phone buzzed one more time before the battery died. A text from Evelyn. Board meeting went well, formally approved the Collins initiative. We launch in 3 months, position's yours if you want it. No pressure, just hope. Thank you for everything, Jack. You changed my life. Jack stared at the message, at the future it offered, at the chance to turn violence into purpose, to help other veterans and single parents find the second chances he'd stumbled into by accident. He thought about Sophie asking if he was happy, about wanting to answer yes more often, about building a life that wasn't just surviving trauma, but actually thriving beyond it. Maybe it was time to stop running from who he'd been, not to become that person again, but to integrate him, to use the skills and training and hard-won wisdom for something other than nightmares and regret. Maybe the quiet man and the warrior could coexist, could build something better together than either could alone. 2 weeks later, Jack stood at the opening ceremony of the Collins initiative. His ribs were mostly healed. His hands still ached in cold weather, probably always would, but he was standing, breathing, living. The venue was packed with donors and veterans and families who needed exactly what Evelyn was offering: a second chance, a path forward, proof that survival could become success with the right support. Sophie sat in the front row, wearing her best dress, the one they'd bought for her school's holiday concert. Mrs. Chen beside her, Detective Rodriguez a few seats over, ghost in the back invisible unless you knew what to look for. Evelyn stood at the podium, confident and radiant, the CEO who'd survived her own war and come out stronger. The Collins initiative exists because one man showed me what real strength looks like, she said. Not money, not power, not violence, just integrity. The willingness to stand up when standing up is hard, to protect the vulnerable, to trust the system even when the system seems broken. Her eyes found Jack in the crowd. Jack Collins fought 50 men to keep me safe. But more than that, he showed me that the quiet ones, the humble ones, the ones who'd rather read bedtime stories than make headlines, they're often the strongest among us. And they deserve our support, our respect, our gratitude. The audience applauded. Jack felt his face heat. He'd agreed to attend, but had refused to speak. Public recognition felt wrong, like stealing credit for just doing what any decent person would do, but Evelyn wasn't done. Jack didn't want to be here tonight. He'd rather be home with his daughter, making pancakes, living quietly. But I convinced him that his story matters, that showing other veterans and single parents they're not alone, that there's a path forward, that their skills and sacrifices have value that matters more than comfort. She gestured for Jack to join her. So please welcome the director of the Collins Initiative, a man who proves every day that heroes don't need capes, they just need courage. Jack didn't move, couldn't. The idea of standing in front of these people accepting praise for violence felt fundamentally wrong. Sophie stood up, walked to the podium, looked at her dad with those two old eyes. "Come on, Daddy," she said. "You tell me heroes show up even when it's hard. Show up." The room erupted in applause and laughter. Jack had no choice. He stood, walked to the podium, Sophie taking his hand like she was the one giving him courage instead of the other way around. Evelyn stepped aside. Jack stared at the crowd, at expectant faces, waiting for wisdom he didn't have. "I'm not good at speeches," he started. "I'm better at action, at doing what needs doing without talking about it." He paused. "But my daughter says I need to try, so here's what I know." Jack looked at the veterans in the audience, at the single parents holding sleeping children, at the people who'd survived their own wars and were still fighting to find peace. "Coming home is harder than deployment," he said, "because in war zones the mission is clear. Protect your team, complete the objective, survive, but at home the mission gets fuzzy. You're supposed to just live, be normal. Pretend the things you saw and did don't follow you into grocery stores and parent-teacher conferences." He felt Sophie squeeze his hand, kept going. "I lost my wife 3 years ago. Thought I lost myself too. Spent those years just existing, just surviving, making pancakes and driving cars and trying to be the dad my daughter deserved." His voice caught. "But survival isn't living. Survival is just treading water, and Sophie deserves a father who swims." The room was silent, listening. 2 weeks ago, someone threatened my daughter, forced me to fight, to remember who I'd been before grief made me someone else. Jack met Evelyn's eyes, and I learned something. You can't outrun your past. You can only integrate it, use it, let it make you stronger instead of bitter. He looked at the veterans. So if you're struggling, if you're lost, if you think your skills don't matter anymore because the war's over, you're wrong. The war's never over. It just changes theaters, and people need you, need your courage, your discipline, your refusal to quit when quitting would be easier. Jack took a breath. The Collins Initiative exists to help you find that mission again, to show you that service doesn't end with discharge papers, that protecting people, helping people, standing up for people who can't stand up for themselves, that's a mission that never ends. Sophie tugged his hand. Jack looked down. She smiled up at him, proud and certain, and everything good he'd ever hoped to protect. "My daughter reminds me every day why we fight," Jack said softly. "Not for glory, not for recognition, but because the world needs people who show up, who do the hard things, who believe that one person standing up can make a difference." He stepped back from the podium. "I'm not a hero. I'm just a dad trying to teach his kid that integrity matters, that promises matter, that standing up when someone needs help isn't optional, it's mandatory." The applause started slow, then built, then became something overwhelming. Jack stood there, Sophie's hand in his, and let himself believe that maybe Evelyn was right. Maybe his story did matter. Maybe showing other people that survival could become purpose was worth the discomfort of being seen. After the ceremony, people approached him, veterans sharing stories, single parents thanking him, job seekers asking about the initiative's programs. Jack answered questions, shook hands, tried not to wince when people gripped his still-healing knuckles. Mrs. Chen appeared with Sophie, who was yawning. "Time to get this one home." "I'm not tired," Sophie protested, then yawned again. Jack said his goodbyes to Evelyn. "Thank you for this, for believing I could do something besides fight. You were always doing something besides fight, Jack. You just needed someone to show you it had value." Evelyn hugged him carefully, mindful of healing ribs. "See you Monday, 9 a.m. We have 40 applications to review." "I'll be there." He walked Sophie and Mrs. Chen to their car. The San Francisco night was clear, stars visible, despite city lights. The kind of night that made you believe the world could be beautiful despite its teeth. Daddy, Sophie was half asleep against his shoulder. You were brave tonight, talking in front of all those people. I was terrified. That's what makes it brave. Mrs. Chen told me, being scared but doing it anyway. Mrs. Chen's very wise. She says you are too. Says you remind her of her husband, the Marine. Jack glanced at Mrs. Chen. She smiled. He would have liked you, Jack. You have the same quiet strength, the same conviction that protecting others is what makes us human. I'm just doing my best. That's all anyone can do. Mrs. Chen patted his arm. Your wife would be proud, you know, of the father you've become, the man you've become. Jack felt tears prick his eyes. He hadn't cried since the funeral, hadn't let himself, but standing in the parking lot with his sleeping daughter and this neighbor who'd become family, he let a few tears fall. I hope so, he whispered. I really hope so. They drove home. Jack carried Sophie upstairs, tucked her into bed, still wearing her fancy dress because waking her seemed cruel. He stood in her doorway for a long time, watching her breathe, memorizing this moment like all the others he'd collected over 9 years of fatherhood. His phone buzzed. Message from an unknown number. Saw you on the news. Proud of you, brother. You took the hard road and made it look easy. Keep fighting the good fight. Your old CO. Jack stared at the message. His commanding officer from his final deployment, the man who'd tried to convince Jack to stay in, who'd understood when Jack said he couldn't, who'd written a recommendation letter Jack had never used. Because civilian jobs didn't ask about classified operations. He typed back, still trying to figure out what the good fight looks like on this side, but I'm trying. The response was immediate. That's all we can ask. Be well, Collins, and hug that daughter of yours. Some of us never got that chance. Jack thought about the men who hadn't made it home, the names on walls and gravestones, the futures stolen by roadside bombs and sniper fire, and the 1,000 ways war found to take people before their time. He thought about survivor's guilt and second chances, and the responsibility to live fully because others couldn't. Then he turned off his phone, checked on Sophie one more time, and went to bed with the kind of peace he'd thought died with his wife. Morning came soft and golden. Sophie jumped on his bed at 7, demanding pancakes. Jack made them despite his doctor's orders to rest, because some things mattered more than medical advice. They ate breakfast in comfortable silence. Sophie told him about a book she wanted from the library. Jack promised they'd go this weekend. Normal things, beautiful things, the kind of things that made life worth protecting. Daddy. Sophie was stacking pancake pieces into a tower. Are you going to keep being a hero? I'm going to keep being your dad. Sometimes that looks like heroism. Sometimes it looks like this. He gestured at their messy kitchen. Both matter. Which matters more? Jack thought about that. About parking lots and violence and the man he'd become in those moments, about standing up and fighting and somehow surviving, but also about mornings like this, about pancakes and laughter and the simple act of being present. This, he said finally, this matters more. Everything I did, everything I fought for, it all comes back to this, to you, to making sure you grow up in a world where people stand up for each other. Sophie nodded seriously. Then you're doing a good job. Yeah. She smiled. You're the best dad in the whole world. Jack felt his chest tighten with love so intense it hurt. You're pretty great yourself, kid. I know. Sophie's confidence was absolute. I learned from the best. They finished breakfast, cleaned up together, started their Saturday with no emergencies, no threats, no violence. Just a father and daughter living the life Jack had fought so hard to protect. His phone rang. Evelyn. Jack, sorry to bother you on Saturday, but I just got a call from the mayor's office. They want to do a formal commendation next month. Medal of Valor, the whole thing. I don't want a medal. I told them that, but they're insisting. It's good PR for the city. Shows that everyday heroes matter. Evelyn paused. And it might help the initiative. More visibility means more funding. Jack sighed. If it helps the initiative, fine, but I'm not making a speech. Deal. Evelyn laughed. You're a terrible public speaker anyway. All that honesty and emotion. Very unprofessional. I'll try to be more corporate. Please don't. The world needs more people like you. Honest, direct, willing to do hard things for the right reasons. Her voice softened. Thank you, Jack, for everything. For saving my life. For helping me build something meaningful from trauma. For being the kind of person who still believes integrity matters. Any time. Jack watched Sophie dance around the living room to music only she could hear. And Evelyn, thank you too, for seeing past the worn suit and tired eyes, for giving me a chance when I needed one, for reminding me that moving forward doesn't mean forgetting where you came from. Partners, Evelyn said. Partners. Jack agreed. He hung up. Sophie crashed onto the couch beside him, breathless from dancing. Was that Ms. Hart? Yeah. I like her. She's nice, and she makes you smile. She's my friend. Good. Sophie curled against his side. You should have more friends. Friends make life better. You're absolutely right. Jack held his daughter, feeling the weight and lightness of being alive, of having survived, of getting to wake up every morning and try again. Outside San Francisco hummed with weekend energy. People living their lives mostly unaware that 2 weeks ago one man had stood against 50 to protect someone who mattered. The world kept spinning, headlines faded, new crises emerged. But in apartment 3B, Jack Collins sat with his daughter and felt something he hadn't felt in 3 years. Hope. Not the desperate hope of survival, but the solid hope of building something lasting, of creating a future where Sophie could grow up strong and safe, and certain that her father would always show up, always stand up, always be the man she needed him to be. The quiet man who'd tried to disappear had been forced back into the light, had fought his battle, had won not through superior violence but through refusing to become the monster his enemy wanted him to be. And now he got to live with the consequences of his choices, got to watch Sophie grow, got to help other veterans find purpose, got to prove every day that strength wasn't about fighting, it was about knowing when to fight and when to simply be present. I love you, Daddy, Sophie whispered. I love you more than anything, Jack whispered back. More than stars, more than stars, more than oceans, more than all the words in all the books ever written. Sophie smiled against his chest, safe, loved, certain of her place in the world. And Jack Collins, retired Navy SEAL, current director of the Collins Initiative, full-time father to the most important person in his universe, let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, the quiet life he'd built was exactly the life he was meant to live. No more running, no more hiding, just showing up every day and doing the hard, beautiful work of being human. That was enough. That was everything.